Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point, AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation. You've heard about this certainly by now, that, again, what Obama's doing with this sequester thing is he is intentionally inflicting harm on the American people. The pain that's being felt does not have to be there. It doesn't have to be this way. There is a considerable amount of flexibility in what Congress can do or what the administration can do in cutting the budget. But they are intentionally choosing to make these cuts as painful and as visible as possible in an effort to punish the Republicans. And all they're doing is punishing innocent American people. Now, you heard yesterday they're canceling the White House tours of the White House. This is petty. It's juvenile. It's childish. It's like a 6-year-old saying, I'm going to take my marbles and go home. And, the intentionality of all of this, an email that was sent Monday by Charles Brown, who's an official with the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service Office. Now, let me ask you that question right there. Let's go back to what Rand Paul said. Do you find any place in Article 1, Section 8, anywhere, where there is any mention of either animal or plant health inspections being an authorized power of the central government? No, you don't. It's not in there. This is an office that ought to be shut down. I'm president. You give me a budget that's got funding for the animal and plant health inspection. I'm just going to zero that out. I'm not even going to phase that down. I'm not even going to cut that back. It's gone. It is history. It's in the archives. So anyway, this email gets sent by Charles Brown. And this Brown guy says, look, quote, is there any latitude in how to spread the sequester cuts across the region to lessen the impacts on fish inspections? Now, again, fish inspections, there's no authorization for fish inspections in the Constitution. If anybody's going to do that, that ought to be the states that do that. It's up to them. He said he was discouraged by officials in Washington who gave him this reply. Listen to this. This is the official reply coming from Obama. Guy says, look, what I really want to do is I want to ease the pain across this region. I want to try to minimize the impact. And the White House told him, no, you cannot minimize the impact. You have to maximize the harm that this thing does. Here's what the White House said. We have gone on record with a notification to Congress and whoever else that the Animal Plant Health Inspection Service Office would eliminate assistance to producers in 24 states unless they provide funding to cover the cost. So it is our opinion that however you manage that reduction, you need to make sure you are not contradicting what we said the impact would be. So, this just confirms exactly what we have suspected, is they are doing everything that they can, the Obama administration, to make their worst predictions come true, even when they don't have to, when it doesn't have to be done. That aircraft carrier, another juvenile petty thing that's $300 million. He's got all kinds of places where if he needs to get that aircraft carrier to the Persian Gulf to protect oil supplies and national security, he's got all kinds of places where he can get that money, transfer it, slim back on one program, and make sure we can send the aircraft carrier. So anyway, here it is. It's official. However you manage that reduction, you need to make sure you are not contradicting what we said the impact would be. We said this is going to be the Mayan apocalypse, and it's your responsibility to make this thing as close to that as you possibly can. Well, let's grab clip one first of all. Louie Gohmert, then we'll go to the phones. Here's Louie Gohmert saying, okay, President Obama, if you are going to shut down White House tours out of spite, out of meanness, out of pettiness, this is the people's house, you're shutting it down. You don't have to. This is totally mean-spirited and spiteful on your part. Louie Gohmert says, here's what I suggest.
The amendment to the continuing resolution of funds, and I'm hoping and begging, pleading that the Rules Committee will make this amendment in order. It's amendment to House Resolution 933, offered by Mr. Gohmert of Texas. At the end of Division 7, before the short title, insert the following. None of the funds made available by a division of this act may be used to transport the President to or from a golf course until public tours of the White House resume. That way we will both work together so the President will not be able to take a golf outing that causes 341 more federal officials to be furloughed and lose their job at least temporarily. and then perhaps avoiding furloughing all these federal employees, we'll be able to get the Democrats and Republicans across America, people that don't even have a party because they're just Americans, they'll be able to get their tour of the White House, and all it'll cost is 1 or 2 golf trips less.
So that's Louie Gohmert. He is my man. Louie Gohmert, one of the great guys. Okay, no White House tours, no golf. Your choice, Mr. President. Got a story here from Politico about the Democrats now. A lot of prominent Democrats are worrying that President Obama has overplayed his hand. He's tried to scare people, and now it's becoming evident that that's not going to happen. You remember President Obama late last week, he said on Friday, he said, look, here's the personal impact of the sequester. Tomorrow, janitors are going to lose their job right here in the Capitol. Janitors are going to lose their job. And the White House, the Washington Post gave him 4 Pinocchios. He's lying through his teeth because the officials in both the Senate and the Capitol, they both said, no, nobody's getting laid off around here. I don't know what he's talking about. And nobody's losing their jobs around here. So then the White House had to backtrack, and they said, well, they have to rely on overtime to make ends meet. So they're still going to feel the crunch. And so the Washington Post, again, gave him 4 Pinocchios. He's lying through his teeth. They do not depend on overtime to make ends meet. Their overtime averaged $304 per employee in fiscal year 2012, and they've already gotten $388 in overtime paid this year. So they've already gotten more in overtime pay than they got last year. So nobody is going to starve because they're not getting their overtime pay. And by the way, do you know what janitors make? These are janitors. These are guys that mop floors, clean toilets, and empty waste baskets. This is what they make. The guys that work at night, they make $51,644 a year. The janitors that work in the day, they get $49,481 a year. I'm guessing there are people out there in this listening audience would kill for a job that would pay that kind of money. Well, let's go to the phones. Let us go to Brian in Fargo, North Dakota. Brian, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Oh, I just wanted to talk to you earlier about the Eric Holder distinction between things that are imminent and things that are immediate.
Yes,
I think a good way to think about that is imagine if the police found a guy who was about ready to set off a time-delayed bomb, and the police are thinking, well, should we shoot him before he can activate it or not? That if he pushes the button, the bomb won't go off for, say, 30 minutes. But if he does push the button, they don't know for sure whether they'll be able to evacuate everybody in time or whether or not they'll be able to disable the bomb. And so the idea there is imminent danger to the police, which might justify them shooting the guy, even though that danger won't occur 1 second later or even 5 minutes later. Does that make sense? So I think what Eric Holder is saying is we won't necessarily only use lethal force with drones or with cops on things that'll happen 1 second from now, but if it might start some sort of chain reaction like a delayed bomb that we think we won't be able to stop, even though the people won't die for half an hour, we'd still be willing to use lethal force in that situation.
Well, I guess I would look at that situation, Brian, I appreciate the desire to try to clarify here, but I would look at that as a case of immediate threat. I mean, if that guy pushes the button, that's an immediate threat. You've got to neutralize that guy because he's getting ready immediately in the next moment to put lives at risk.
Legally.
It'd be, I guess the parallel would be if the guy is planning to set off a bomb in 30 days. Right. You find out, you eavesdrop, you get you wiretap a warrant, and you find out that he is planning to set off a bomb in 30 days. That is an imminent threat, but it's not an immediate threat. You have time to take him into custody. You've got time to get him processed and tried and so forth. I guess that would be the difference I would see.
I'm just talking legally the difference between imminent and immediate. That it may seem immediate that it'll only occur in half an hour, but legally speaking, that would be an imminent threat, not an immediate one. So that's what Eric Holder was saying.
Now, are you saying that there are legal definitions for the difference between these two terms?
Yeah, I think that's that you said that this was Eric Holder's legal distinction that he was making.
Yeah, but are you saying that in the legal profession there is a well understood these terms have technical legal meanings and they're well understood the difference between them?
I would say that yes, most likely.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate that. We'll kind of keep that in mind and maybe do some more poking into that. All right. Thank you. That's Brian in Fargo. Let's go to Peter Lawton, Oklahoma. Peter, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hi, Brian.
Hey.
At the end of your show yesterday, you had 2 callers right at the end, and so I wasn't able to call in. But I just want to appreciate the courage that you had to flat out call the caller what he was. This is the one who called and who you described partial birth abortion to, and he still said he was okay with that.
Yeah.
And called the fetus said it was a parasite. Too often I hear well, I appreciate your call. We disagree, but you actually called him what it was, a monster. And I think that there are certain times where people are beyond lost. They can't be reasoned with, convinced, pleaded with, or changed. They're simply evil. I think it's our duty to fight them, and we need to fight them in the courts, fight them in the legislatures, and fight them in the media. Because if we do not, then the time will come when our only option is to fight them on the battlefield. And as an Army officer who has spent some time on those, I can assure you that's not where we want to go. So I just really appreciate you calling him what he was and not allowing him to continue on and saying this is the end of that conversation.
Yeah.
So,
all right, Peter. Well, listen, thank you very much for that. And I got a couple of calls after the show yesterday, people expressing the same sentiments that, it was just appalling to me. Part of it, I was just appalled that I could describe what was being done to a baby that was moments away from entering into the world and describe that gruesome, horrific, Nazi-like procedure, and for a guy to sit there and say that that's okay. I was just appalled at that, and I just don't think there's any reason to listen to that kind of thinking any further. Had another guy called, by the way, on a kind of a different angle on the parasite thing. The guy called kids parasites. He said, look, they don't stop being parasites when they're born. I got 8 kids in my home. They're all parasites. So that also can cut that way, too. You're listening to Focal Point on AFR Talk. We'll be right back after the news. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. You are listening to Focal Point on the American Family Radio Talk Network.